Hello friends, this is Reflections, a program sponsored by Paducah Cooperative Ministry where together we do God's work with human hands. I'm Karen Winkel, one of your co-hosts here on Reflections. I pastor United Church of Paducah here in Paducah, and our other co-host is Gregory Waldrop, who pastors at Fountain Avenue United Methodist. Good to see you, Gregory.
Glad to be right here with you.
You betcha.
And glad to be with you all. We have another wonderful program for you today. We have with us Mark Chapman, who is the Cumberland Presbyterian pastor around in the region, as well as a chaplain at Lourdes Hospital. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you.
Glad you're here. Tell us about which church you serve, as well as just what's going on in your life these days.
Well, right now I'm helping out with a couple of small churches of ours in my denomination, which is the Cumberland Presbyterian Church in America, Enoch Chapel Cumberland Presbyterian Church, as well as Oak Grove Cumberland Presbyterian Church in the Joppa area,
Great.
Joppa, Illinois area.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, you're the chaplain at Lourdes Hospital, a person we see around the hospital all kinds of ways and places. And tell us about your job there.
Well, basically, I'm a chaplain. Chaplains are basically ministers in a specialized area, and of course, this specialized area would be a hospital. My day basically consists every day beginning with prayer. I pray generally over the intercom with our hospital, and that's basically how I start. And from there, I begin with visiting not members, but patients in hospital rooms, and that's basically what I do on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know at Lourdes you're not the only chaplain. You've got a pastoral care department.
Right. Our spiritual manager is Sister Lucy Boniface. She's our manager. We have three other chaplains on staff. We have a Catholic priest, Father Frank Roof. We have a Catholic sister who serves as chaplain, Sister Clara Scotzo, as well as another Catholic chaplain, Tom Salavino.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm guessing that your visits are requested, or do you move in and around the hospital sort of at will, or are these mostly people that ask for visits?
Yeah, mostly consults. We go in and again we assess the patient's spiritual needs as well as emotional needs, and we try to address those needs by helping them to come to some kind of resolve, as it has to do with where they are spiritually.
Mm-hmm. Now, lots of times I know when people hear the word chaplain, they're thinking this isn't good, that death is impending. But chaplains are not necessarily a spiritual resource in a crisis or time in which death might be imminent.
Right. Well, basically, we're helpers, just like the nurses. We're staff people. We're there to help them to get well. We, as a hospital, we believe in holistic care, which means not only do we address the body, the physical, the mental, but also the spiritual. Mm-hmm. And of course, that's where the chaplain comes in. That's where we come into play. We assess those needs and help them toward wellness.
Mm-hmm.
I worked as a chaplain in a couple of settings, and I became aware that another portion of the work that chaplains do is to staff.
Right.
And you tend to staff folks in all kinds of ways.
Right. We provide pastoral care not only to patients, but also to the staff. They have needs. They're dealing with issues, the everyday stresses of life, and they have lives. They have lives too. Not only are they professionals in that regard, but they also have a life outside of the hospitals, and sometimes their personal lives are interrupted, at least by way of issues, and sometimes those they show up at the hospital, and we help them as much as we can.
And then also sometimes there's a situation that really affects that staff. You know, there's a patient whose situation really, you know, grabs their hearts and souls, and they need some care just like a family would who's seeing to that to that individual.
Right. Oftentimes staff get attached to patients, and it affects them in a different way. Usually because that person may remind them of someone, or even themselves. And for some reason or another, they're identifying with those people, and they want to help those people the best way they can. So they pull at every source that they can, including the spiritual, and that's where we come in, and we try to do whatever we can to help that patient as well as help that staff person.
Now, at Lourdes, there is a regular regimen of prayers, and obviously I think many of us have heard the prayer over the loudspeaker, over the intercom, but what about other offerings of prayer and worship and healing, and what's the kind of rhythm of life there?
We often pray with our patients after visits, you know, but there are times when, to be honest, some people don't want prayer, you know. Sometimes they just want to visit. They want the spiritual care for whatever reason, and we try not to push that off on patients. We try to encourage it, but yet we try to respect their wishes also.
Masses every week, communion for Protestants?
Sure, we have Mass almost every day in our chapel, I think every day, just about daily. And we do that daily. On Sundays, with our own call chaplains, we have a special service that we hold on 8th floor, which is the rehab area, with the patients there. So we try to make that available to our patients and staff as well.
And then I'm remembering a service that I attended and participated in. You have a very moving service that you organize on an annual basis for gathering together those who've lost someone in the previous year.
Well, actually, it's a quarterly. It's quarterly program we have. It's a memorial service that we have. I think Greg has also spoke at that program, and we do this for grieving families. And this is a service that we provide to allow them to remember their loved ones. And I really enjoy participating in that along with our hospice chaplains. We all just get together and we plan out programs, and I think it really helps the community at large as well as the families of the patients who have deceased.
Well, and it allows people to know that, you know, as they gather, that they have lots of company, you know, that they are part of a kind of an invisible community of people who are suffering a loss as they are. That was something that I saw the day that I was there, that all of a sudden people who think that they're alone in their experience look around and they see other people who've been affected by loss as well, and that doesn't necessarily change the grief they feel, but it might change their ideas about
It helps those families to identify with other grieving families, and like you said, it lets them know that they're not alone. You know, oftentimes during crisis situations such as those, we think, you know, why am I going through this? And you know, it seems like I'm the only one experiencing this, but oftentimes it's not, and it's not. You know, everybody has problems, and more people than, say, you and I or others are having problems where we are maybe grieving situations, and programs like that, I think, help families to see that they're not alone.
I know I have come to believe that grief work is about as important a work as spiritual work, as we have a chance. Certainly it connects, contacts, affects us all regularly and often, and I think it is important work.
It is. It's very important to grieve and to grieve appropriately. You know, one of the things that we have as a part of the grieving process, we have several bereavement programs that we offer also. Hospice chaplains have programs that they help patients during times of bereavement after death. And definitely that happened along with the memorial services, those things like that. And we as a department try to keep in contact at least throughout the year, at least the first year. We send out information to aid them in the grieving process, and I find that to be very comforting and helpful.
How does a person become a chaplain? You just wander in and say, I wanna.
Yeah. Well, it's a rather somewhat extensive program. One of the things you're going to have is you're going to have to be a college grad, a seminary graduate, and along with that, you have to go through a program, clinical pastoral education, which could be some extensive, could not be. Usually it's a year-long residential program at most hospitals. And after that, there's a period where you wait, and then you can apply for board certification. And depending on whether or not your board certification go through, you can move right on along. That doesn't mean that you can't become a chaplain after the 4 units of CPE. It's just that, just like most professions, we want certification, and our profession is the same in that regard. We stress board certification, being professional, being able to do things to at least show that we are professional, that we can do the job and do it well. And that's a part of our board certification.
Because I would bet most folks don't realize that a chaplain's had, in many cases, more education and more formation than a parish minister.
Regular pastor.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long process. It can be quite extensive. A lot of chaplains, they go right on, and right after that. It's important to remain current as a chaplain also. So some chaplains go on to do doctoral work in the area, as well as do other kinds of study in order to keep yourself well abreast of the spiritual needs of patients, and, as well as some of the things that's going on in the hospital setting.
And you talked about being 4 chaplains there at Lourdes, and plus the hospice chaplains. I'm sure there's that many at Western Baptist as well. And is there an association of chaplains in the region or in the town, or do you all get together?
Yeah, we get together occasionally with the chaplains at Western Baptist. We have in times past, and hopefully we'll continue to do that. I think we've kind of gotten away from that. I think one year we've skipped a year now, but a year or two, but I believe we're going to get back together. But the chaplains there at the hospital, we definitely make it a point to get together. One of the things we do each year is we have a retreat among ourselves. And we sometimes go to a certain place. We've often went to Illinois, retreat centers there, or we may go to a church or some kind of scenic area around here to just get away from the everyday stresses and to just to get along and to retreat and to kind of mind ourselves. And this is a way that not only we identify, we get together with ourselves, but also it provides a time of quiet for all of us.
Now, the role of a chaplain, I'm thinking a little bit about this, because the folks that I would be ministering to But we have kind of a, by and large, kind of a common faith and a common orientation. But the role of a chaplain is you have to be more versatile in a sense.
Right.
You have to really connect with
People
the
of all faiths.
spirituality and the core beliefs of someone who might have a faith very different from yours. Talk about that a little bit and how you do that.
Exactly. We relate to people of all faith groups, and in fact all religions, and we that's one thing that I think chaplaincy in a specialized area have in common with all faith groups is that the need for spirituality, and so we do that, and we do that by number one, respecting the faith traditions of anybody who comes into, in particular, our hospital, and we try to meet them where they are, their value system, where they are, their faith group, and we go from there. We're not there to convert people. We're there to help them with their spiritual issues.
Has there been for you a time that was especially challenging in that regard? Someone who had to...
Because of my training, that's part of our training, that it helps us it prepares us to relate to people of all faith groups. Usually after my training, I was pretty much used to it, but as of late, I haven't run into that much. I can basically empathize with most anybody in regards to their tradition,
Beautiful.
right now.
Yeah.
Are there some tips you will tell all of us who visit the hospital regularly, some things we can do that will help the healing happen, or on the other side, some things to be sure and not do because they get in the way of healing? Any kind of tips for all the hospital visitors that are listening and watching?
Well, one of the things, if you're just unsure of things, if you're unsure of, I'm taking in regard, you're talking about pastors.
Sure. Our lay folks.
All lay folks. If you're unsure about things, maybe to talk what you should be talking about or whatever, you may want to call one of the chaplains. We'll help you to maybe to go over some things that maybe some things that you maybe should know or would like to know in regards to that patient. Not so much the patient's personal stuff, but some of the things just out of experience that you maybe want to talk about, opposed to something that may affect the patient's spiritual health or whatever. So if you would just call a chaplain, we'd be glad to go over that kind of thing with you. In regards to things that maybe you shouldn't talk about is, of course, one of the things we do as hospital chaplains, and it's very stressed at our hospital, is confidentiality. We respect the confidentiality of every patient that comes. We don't go out talking about what's going on with the patient's health, the patient's prognosis or diagnosis. We don't do that, and that's something that we try to stress right now, is to never talk about a person's health once they leave the hospital.
Yeah. You recommend people talking about their own war stories, or not war stories, but hospital
recitals.
stories. Yeah, yeah, when they had their tonsils out, and is that a helpful thing or not a helpful thing to tell a patient getting ready to have their tonsils out about all the ways you experienced it when you had yours out?
I wouldn't say never, because there are some times when maybe to tell a story, that could help a person. But oftentimes it's not. I think when a person is in the hospital setting, it's good to more or less allow them to express themselves. Let that be their time, because when a person comes to the hospital, one of the things I've experienced is that they don't have very much privacy, and time. It's one thing after another. A lot of things are going on in the hospital setting. So I would say to anybody that's coming to try to make that time more for the patient rather than yourself. Try to meet the needs of the patient. What can I do for you? Yeah. And if that's nothing more than just listening, that's more than anything. That's more healing than you would think.
I had a parishioner surprise me not long ago. He had been hospitalized with something that wasn't life-threatening, but was very concerning for him. And before I paid him a visit, I just called him at the hospital and I said, "Would you like a visit?" And he says, "Yeah, come on over." So I did. And like a year later, he said, "I was so appreciative that you called and asked if I wanted a visit." He said, because I realized that maybe the answer could have been no. And I wouldn't have been in a situation, with you walking in to say, "Go away."
Yeah, right. People want support when they're in a hospital setting. I think that's very important. And sometimes it don't have to come in the form of a lot of talk. You don't have to talk. Just being there, holding their hands, that means a lot to people. Just being there, being present with them. As chaplains, we call that the ministry of presence. Just being there, being present with that person. Sometimes, and you all have experienced it before, just being there and afterwards you may hear a patient say, "Well, I'm so glad you was there. You made me feel so much better. You did so much for me." And you're thinking, "Well, what did I do other than hold their hand?" To be present, that's very important.
I'm talking about this notion of giving people some control over their life. I remember when my own mother was sick, one of the most amazing and healthy and helpful things that the doctor who was attending to us did was put my mother in complete charge and control by the questions he asked, by the ways he allowed people in or out, even her own family. He didn't want us to, override the decisions that were there. And there is a sense in which in the hospital you feel most vulnerable, most out of control.
Right.
And to give people a sense of control, even in little ways, I think is a healing. It was noticeable in the experience that I had with my own mother, and sort of alerted me to the reality of that.
I think it's very freeing to patients to do that, because it gives them the freedom to make their own decisions. And say if they're unsure about certain issues, they have family. Usually the doctor will say, "Well, I'll give you some time to think about that." Well, they know then, well, I can think about it, or I can get my family to feed it to them, and I can get feedback from them, and they can make a better informed choice in regards to what they want to do, what they want from healthcare.
What about the issues of touch? And biblically, the healing often is associated with anointing or with laying hands on. It's obviously a sort of a delicate thing these days. What do you deal with about that?
Yeah, I think that's very important to a lot of people. But let me just put one word in there: appropriate touch. Making sure that touch is appropriate, letting the person know what you're about to do. At the hospital, particularly with our Catholic patients, that of course anointing is very important to them, and so receiving anointing almost daily is very important. So there's a part where touch is needed, and then oftentimes you may want to hold a person's hand. A person wants you to hold their hands. And of course, that's touch. Or you may want to just touch a person's shoulder but make sure the touch is appropriate. I think that's one of the key things.
I know it's not the only thing that you do as end of life, but it is part of what you encounter, I'm sure. And I know that you do end of life directives, healthcare surrogates, all those kind of things. All the chaplains have forms available for that kind of work.
Exactly. What we do at the hospital, we encourage people to complete living wills of documents that that more or less addresses the person's end of life needs. It gives that person a chance to say in writing what their needs are, what their wishes are in regards to what they want done at the end of their lives. And that's one of the things that we do as chaplain. We help by way of educating patients as well as the families in regards to those documents, and we also encourage them to do that. We also have a new program, and let me say this program is only done by only 2 hospitals here in Kentucky, and we're one, along with the Markham Hospital, Markham Wallace Hospital in Irving, Kentucky. It's called the Living Will Registry Program. It's a program where your living will is registered nationally, and so no matter where you go, with the information that's been given to the hospital, it will show up. In particular, your living will, it will show up by way of the computer, and we are one of 2 hospitals. Lourdes is one of 2 hospitals that have that program right now.
Well, we just have really a minute left. What have we left out? Any last little thing you would want us to know?
Just consider Lourdes.
Yeah.
Consider Lourdes. If you have any problems, any questions in regards to the hospital, just call the chaplain. When you get there, we'll be glad to help you.
Always somebody on call.
Always
There's
someone
somebody
on call.
there, and
We'll be glad to help you. Chaplains are there for you. We assist you in any way possible.
yeah, oftentimes I've called chaplains when I hadn't heard from a patient in the middle of a surgery, and it's lasted over a long time, and chaplains have been particularly helpful in helping get information about what's
They're
going
to
on.
serve.
Right.
Right. We have a lot of information there that we can give to you in regards to like maps, anything from maps to, of course, we got the technology to to find patients or anything in regards to that. We can help. We can help in any way.
Well, Mark Chapman, thank you for coming and sharing with us about chaplaincy at Lourdes and chaplaincy in general, and blessings upon you and all those who are serving God's people in that setting. Gregory, it's been good to be together. Good to have you with us here at Reflections. Do join us wherever you can, however you can, with Paducah Cooperative Ministry in doing God's work with human hands. Shalom.
Shalom.